The scent of ozone, oil, and cold metal was the perfume of his life. For Leo Vance, it was the smell of security, of honest work, of a world that made sense. It was the air inside his repair van, a vehicle that was less a truck and more a mobile chapel dedicated to the gospel of fixing things. But now, that familiar sanctuary felt like a tomb. The paper in his hands, crumpled and damp with sweat, was the epitaph of the life he thought he had built. 2 boys. Ethan, 11 years old, with his serious, thoughtful eyes that always seemed to be figuring out how the world worked, and Sam, 8, a whirlwind of laughter and scraped knees. 13 and 10 years of bedtime stories, of teaching them how to throw a baseball, of holding them after nightmares, of proud swelling moments at school plays. Not his blood. Not even close. The paternity test results were a masterpiece of clinical cruelty. Child A, Ethan Vance, 0.00% probability of paternity. Child B, Samuel Vance, 0.00% probability of paternity. The words weren't just typed on a page, they were ice picks driven directly into the core of him. He'd felt the chill of suspicion for months. Nina's distant gaze, her new, expensive wardrobe that appeared without discussion, the way she'd begun to flinch from his casual touch, as if his calloused hands were an affront. But this was nuclear winter. This was the absolute zero of betrayal. With a mechanical slowness, Leo folded the paper, creasing it with a thumb that was permanently stained with grease. He shoved it deep into his toolbox, next to the industrial-grade wrenches and voltage testers that had built his modest HVAC and refrigeration business from a single van into a respected local operation. 17 years of marriage, 13 years of believing he was a father, all of it a magnificent, intricate lie. The foundation of his existence was sand. His phone buzzed, shattering the heavy silence. A text from Julian Croft, his business partner, and, he'd thought, his closest friend. "Hey Leo, the beast is acting up again. The climate control unit in the home theater just died. Client's freaking out. Any chance you can swing by tonight? Nina mentioned you were free. You're a lifesaver." Leo stared at the screen, the words blurring. Julian's house. The sprawling modern monstrosity on the hill where Nina had been spending her yoga nights. The same Julian who had, quote, partnered with Leo 6 years ago, providing the capital to expand while Leo provided the sweat and expertise, securing them lucrative commercial contracts. Julian, with his easy charm and seemingly endless network, who got them wholesale parts at friend prices. Leo's fingers, thick and strong from a lifetime of turning bolts, typed a reply. "On my way." The drive to Julian's estate in the exclusive Crestview Heights neighborhood took 18 minutes. 18 minutes spent navigating streets lined with impossibly perfect lawns, behind which stood houses that were monuments to success, or, as he was now beginning to understand, to successful deception. His own van, with Vance and Croft Climate Control Solutions stenciled on the side, looked like a poor relation next to Julian's gleaming black Porsche 911 and Nina's sleek Audi SUV, both parked in the vast cobblestone circular driveway. Julian answered the door himself, dressed in a tailored navy robe, his dark hair perfectly styled even though it was damp from a recent shower. "Leo, man, thanks for coming. I owe you one. This thing just quit. You know how it is with these Italian units. Temperamental." "No problem," Leo said, his voice a low rumble. He hefted his toolbox. "Lead the way." The house was a cathedral of cold luxury. It smelled of lemon-polished marble, expensive sandalwood cologne, and something else, a faint, lingering scent of Nina's perfume. Leo followed Julian through the soaring foyer, past abstract sculptures that probably cost more than Leo's first house, and down a floating staircase into the finished lower level. It was a man cave par excellence, a wall of rare whiskey bottles, a full-sized billiards table, and a home theater with plush stadium seating. The problematic climate control unit was humming an angry, strained tune in a dedicated closet. "Started making a grinding noise yesterday. Julian explained, pouring 2 fingers of Macallan into a crystal tumbler and not offering one to Leo. Then tonight, during the big game, it just gave up the ghost. Hot air. Leo knelt, his knees popping faintly. He ran his hands over the unit's housing, his touch instinctively diagnostic. A seized bearing in the condenser fan. A simple fix for him, a 15-minute job. He opened his toolbox, the familiar clatter of metal, a comforting sound in this alien environment. As his hands worked on autopilot, his mind churned through darker calculations. "How's Nina doing?" Julian asked, sipping his scotch. He settled into a leather recliner as if watching a performance. She seemed a bit stressed when she was over on Tuesday. Leo's wrench slipped, scoring a bright silver line on a coolant line. Tuesday. Yoga night. "Yeah," Leo grunted, not looking up. "Work stuff." "Well, tell her not to work too hard." Though, between you and me, Julian chuckled, a rich, self-satisfied sound. "I think her yoga classes involve more Chardonnay than chakras. Not that I'm complaining. She's fantastic company." The new bearing slid into place with a definitive, satisfying click. Leo stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mind if I use your bathroom? Long day." "Sure thing, buddy. Upstairs, down the main hall to the left. Master bath is the only one with decent water pressure. Help yourself." Leo took the stairs slowly, each step a deliberate act. The master suite was a study in minimalist opulence. A platform bed, wide enough for a family, dressed in gray linen. A walk-in closet larger than Leo's home office. The bathroom was a spa of travertine and chrome. He splashed cold water on his face, staring at his reflection in the vast backlit mirror. 43 years old, more gray than brown in his hair now. Lines etched around his eyes from squinting at schematics and into the sun on job sites. His hands, a map of nicks, scars, and ground-in dirt that no soap could erase. The hands of a man who built and fixed things. What had he expected? That a woman like Nina, with her sharp intelligence and relentless ambition, would stay satisfied with a simple mechanic forever? He reached for a hand towel and froze. There, tucked almost out of sight behind a stack of imported bath salts and expensive lotions, was a single Polaroid. His heart didn't just skip a beat, it seemed to stop entirely. The silence in his ears roaring. It was Nina, his wife, naked except for a lace negligee he had never seen, a black slash against her skin. She was posed on the very marble vanity he was leaning against, her body arched, one hand touching herself, the other holding the phone that must have taken the picture. Her eyes were locked on the lens, blazing with a raw, hungry lust that was a foreign country to him. And on her left hand, catching the light, was her wedding ring. The photo trembled in his hand. Scrawled in the white border at the bottom, in Nina's unmistakable looping handwriting, were 4 words: "For my real king." Leo pocketed the photo. It felt like a sharded glass against his chest. He walked back downstairs on legs that had turned to concrete. Julian was pouring another drink. "All fixed? Bearing was shot. Should be fine now." "You're a wizard, Leo. What do I owe you?" He reached for his wallet. "Forget it," Leo said, his voice sounding distant, like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. "Partners help partners, right?" Julian grinned, a flash of perfect white teeth, and extended his hand. Leo took it, noting the absurd softness of Julian's palm, the manicured nails. These were not hands that had ever built or fixed anything. These were hands that signed checks, that touched what they wanted, that took. "Nina's lucky to have you," Julian said, the condescension dripping like honey. "A solid guy, dependable, salt of the earth, you know?" "Yeah," Leo replied, meeting Julian's gaze for the first time that night. "I know exactly what I am." The drive home was an out-of-body experience. He floated through the familiar streets, the world outside the van windows seeming like a poorly constructed film set. His own house, a comfortable but unpretentious 2-story colonial in a neighborhood of similar homes, now looked small, shabby, pathetic. Nina's car was gone, still at yoga, or in Julian's bed. He sat in the dark van for a long time, staring at the warm light glowing from the boy's bedroom window. The Polaroid was a brand against his heart. His phone rang. It was Nina. "Hey, honey, yoga ran late. Don't wait up, okay? Love you." "Love you too," Leo said automatically, the words ash in his mouth. The boys were asleep when he finally went inside. He stood in the doorway of their room, watching them. Ethan was curled around a book, his glasses still on. Sam was splayed out, one arm dangling off the bed, his stuffed dog tucked under his chin. Their DNA traced back to Julian Croft, not Leo Vance. But they didn't know that. They called him Dad. Their love for him was in the drawing stuck to the fridge, in the way they raced to the door when he came home, in their absolute, unwavering trust. That love was the only real thing left in the collapsing universe. He took the paternity test results from his toolbox and read them one final time under the kitchen light. Then he fed them into the cross-cut shredder he used for old invoices. The machine roared, chewing the proof of his biological irrelevance into meaningless confetti. But the Polaroid, that he kept. Evidence for later. Nina came home at 2:08 a.m., sliding into bed with the practiced silence of a ghost. She smelled of shower gel and a faint, unfamiliar musk, Julian's cologne. Leo lay perfectly still, listening to her breathing even out into the rhythm of an untroubled sleep. The morning was a study in surreal normalcy. The chaos of breakfast, the search for homework and matching shoes, the boys bickering over the last of the chocolate chip pancakes. Nina moved through it all with a polished efficiency, dressed for her job as commercial real estate broker. She kissed Leo goodbye, her lips a dry, swift press against his cheek. They were the same lips captured in that Polaroid. "Have a good day, honey. Love you." "Love you too," Leo said automatically, the words ash in his mouth. After the garage door closed and the house fell silent, Leo sat at the worn kitchen table and began to plan. Revenge wasn't a sudden explosion of anger. It was a complex system, like the intricate HVAC units he mastered. It required blueprinting, precision sourcing of components, and flawless execution. One miscalculation, one leak, one loose connection, and the entire system would fail catastrophically. Phase 1. Intelligence gathering. He started with her laptop. While Nina slept, he installed a keystroke logger and a voice-activated recording app buried deep in the system root files, masked as a driver. Next was her phone. A week later, during a family movie night, he fixed her perpetually failing battery by replacing it with a new one that contained a nearly undetectable chip that cloned all her data to a secure cloud server he controlled. He bought a cheap, pay-as-you-go burner phone that became his window into her world. Within days, the dam broke. A torrent of evidence flooded his hidden digital vault. Text messages spanning nearly 2 years, explicit and laughingly cruel. Dozens of photos, each more damning than the Polaroid. Voice recordings of intimate phone calls made while Leo was unclogging a drain line in a restaurant's walk-in freezer. But the true dagger, the one that twisted with surgical precision, was a folder she had hidden encrypted on her phone labeled Future Plans. It contained draft divorce papers already drawn up by her lawyer, custody agreements demanding primary physical custody for her, with Leo granted reasonable visitation every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer. Child support calculations based on his business's gross income, not his net, which would have bled him dry, and a meticulously crafted plan to argue that Leo's long work hours made him an absentee father, unfit for primary care. She'd even included notes on how to leverage his volatile temperament, a complete fiction, to secure a restraining order if he contested too vigorously. The affair wasn't a crime of passion. It was a corporate takeover strategy, a hostile merger of lives with Leo as the asset to be stripped and discarded. He printed everything, every text, every photo, every legal document. He organized them in color-coded binders, building a case file with methodical precision of a prosecutor. This was no longer about hurt feelings. This was about survival. The next month was an exercise in agonizing restraint. He played his part perfectly, the tired, slightly dim, hard-working husband. He listened to her lies over dinner, nodding sympathetically. Maybe you should let Julian take more of a lead on the financial side. He has such a mind for business. We could really grow. Think of the opportunities. The boys deserve more than this. "This seems fine, Leo," replied, his voice carefully neutral. "Fine isn't exceptional, Leo. God, don't you want more? Julian says the commercial market is booming. Big money." "Julian says a lot of things." "He's trying to help you," she snapped. "We can't live in this mediocrity forever." "Ethan, perceptive and sensitive, looked up from his plate. "Dad, are you okay?" Leo forced a warm smile, the greatest acting performance of his life. "Just tired, champ. Big job downtown." That night, through his hidden audio feed, he listened to them discuss him. "He's so passive, it's almost pathetic," Nina's voice crackled in his ear. "Just sits there like a beaten dog. I can't stand it." "Just a little longer, sweetheart," Julian soothed. "Once the papers are filed and we have custody settled, it's over. You'll be free, we'll be free." "And the boys?" Nina asked. "What about them?" Julian replied, his tone casual, dismissive. "Leo will pay through the nose for them, and they'll have a real father figure in their lives. A real home. It's a win-win." He closed the app and stared at the ceiling, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. The emotional devastation began to harden under immense pressure into a diamond core of cold, unshakable resolve. The catalyst came 3 weeks later. Julian's warehouse received a massive shipment of high-end European climate control systems for a new luxury high-rise downtown, a contract worth over $750,000. The shipment, due to a scheduling error, was to be stored over the weekend for installation on Monday. Leo had studied the warehouse's security for weeks. Julian, in his arrogance, relied on a basic alarm system and a few outdated cameras, enough to deter amateurs, but laughable to a professional who understood electrical systems. On Friday night, Leo parked his personal car, an old sedan he used for fishing trips, 6 blocks away. Dressed in dark, nondescript clothing, he approached the warehouse from the back, through a neglected alley. His toolkit was small and specific. Wire cutters, a multimeter, a custom-made device no larger than a smartphone that could mimic security system codes, and several small, sealed canisters. He disabled the alarm with the ease of a man disassembling a familiar appliance. Inside, the warehouse was a canyon of cardboard and steel. He moved silently, a shadow among shadows. He didn't plant explosives. He was a craftsman, not a terrorist. His tools were more elegant. He located the main electrical panel and the data hub for the building's internal network. To the former, he attached a small, powerful magnet that would slowly, over 48 hours, degrade the components, leading to a complete and inexplicable power failure. To the latter, he connected a tiny data tap that would siphon every byte of information from Julian's servers, searching for financial records, emails, anything incriminating, and upload it to a digital dead drop. Then he went to the shipment itself. Using a specialized tool, he punctured the coolant lines of a dozen key units in a way that would appear to be a manufacturing defect or transport damage. The expensive, environmentally regulated refrigerant would slowly leak out, not enough to be immediately dangerous, but enough to render every single unit in the shipment worthless and require a costly, time-consuming hazmat cleanup. The contract would be obliterated. Finally, in a vent in Julian's private office, he placed a small, vacuum-sealed bag of high-grade marijuana. Not enough for a major charge, but enough to complicate things immensely when the police and insurance investigators inevitably swarmed the contaminated site. By 2:30 a.m., he was back in his own bed, his breathing steady. Nina slept soundly beside him, dreaming, no doubt, of her king. The first domino fell at 7:15 a.m. on Saturday. His phone rang. "Leo? Jesus, man, I need your help." Julian's voice was tight with panic. "It's the warehouse. There's some kind of smell, a chemical smell. The alarm company called. You know about this refrigerant stuff. Can you come down?" Leo feigned grogginess. "A chemical leak, Julian? That's serious. You can't go in there. You need to call the fire department and a hazmat team, immediately." "I can't afford a shutdown. I've got the Carlton Towers units in there. It's a disaster." "A bigger disaster if you breathe that stuff in and die," Leo said, his voice flat. "Call the professionals. It's beyond me." He hung up, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. By Monday, the local business news was leading with the story. Major hazmat incident at Croft Distributing. Multi-million-dollar contract in jeopardy. Julian's face, pale and strained, appeared in a news clip outside the taped-off building, spouting platitudes about unforeseen circumstances and full cooperation with investigators. Phase 2 began on Tuesday.
Nina's car, the Audi that was a symbol of her desired status, suffered a catastrophic failure of its own sophisticated climate control system. The compressor, which Leo had subtly tampered with weeks earlier, seized and ruptured while she was driving an important client to a property viewing. Smoke poured from the vents, filling the cabin with the acrid smell of burning wires and electronics. It was a scene of utter humiliation and professional ruin. The subsequent inspection revealed evidence of deliberate interference. The insurance company flagged her claim for fraud, and since the car was registered to her, the investigation pointed directly at her. Wednesday brought another call from Julian. He'd lost his smooth, confident tone. "Leo, I need you to be straight with me. Have you been to the warehouse recently? Besides the service call last month." "Your warehouse? Why would I go there?" Someone sabotaged the shipment. The coolant lines were punctured. The power system's fried. It's a professional job. It takes serious knowledge." Leo let the silence hang in the air, heavy and accusing. "You think I sabotage your business, Julian?"
"I don't know what to think anymore." Julian's voice cracked. "Everything is falling apart. The IRS is now involved because of some anonymous tip about my books. The insurance company is talking about voiding my policy. And now Nina's car. It's like someone has it in for both of us." "Maybe you should take a long, hard look at your recent choices, Julian," Leo said, his voice quiet, cold, and utterly controlled. "Sometimes, consequences have a way of catching up to you." He ended the call. On Thursday evening, the doorbell rang. It was Nina's younger sister, Chloe. Her face was set in a mask of stern sympathy. "Leo, we need to talk." She brushed past him into the living room. She held a long legal envelope. "Nina asked me to give you this. She's staying with a friend. It's for the best." Leo took the envelope. Divorce papers. She'd filed. He glanced at them, then tossed them on the coffee table without reading a word. "Just like that?" "Leo, come on," Chloe said, her tone exasperated. "We all know this hasn't been working for years. Nina deserves to be happy. The boys need stability. It's time to be an adult about this. Sign the papers, be reasonable about the assets, and work out a fair custody arrangement." "Stability," Leo repeated, the word tasting bitter. He walked to his locked filing cabinet and retrieved a binder, its black cover ominous. He dropped it on the table with a heavy thud. "Before I sign anything, Chloe, I think you need to understand what kind of stability your sister has been planning." Puzzled, Chloe opened the binder. Her face underwent a rapid transformation from confident to confused, then to horrified. She saw the Polaroid, she saw the text messages, she saw the financial records tracing money from Leo's account to Julian's. She read the draft custody agreement that labeled Leo an absentee father. "Oh my God, Leo," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. I had no idea." "Neither did I, not until recently." She kept flipping, her hands trembling. "The boys, they're not..." "Biologically, no. But I've been their father in every way that matters for over a decade. This, all of this, was her strategy to take my money, and move into Julian's world. This is monstrous." She looked up, her eyes wide with shock and dawning disgust. "I can't. I need to go." She stood up, unsteady. "Chloe," Leo's voice stopped her at the door. It was not the voice of the kicked dog she'd heard Nina describe. It was the voice of a judge pronouncing a sentence. "When you see your sister, tell her I received her message loud and clear, and tell her I'm sending one back." On Friday morning, Leo drove to the outskirts of the city, to the abandoned 8-Nut Iceworks factory. It was a decaying relic of the city's industrial past, a place where he'd worked a summer job during college.
The main refrigeration hall was vast, a cathedral of rusted steel and concrete, dominated by the massive, silent ammonia compressors that had once produced ice for the entire region. He spent the day at preparing. He had already restored power to a section of the building for this purpose. He set up 3 large, high-resolution projectors aimed at the blank, vast walls. He wired speakers throughout the space. He arranged 2 simple metal folding chairs in the center of the cavernous room, facing the main projection wall. It was a theater. Tonight would be the premiere. In the late afternoon, he sent 2 text messages from his burner phone. The first, to Julian. Urgent meeting reinsurance investigation. Etna Iceworks, 9 p.m., come alone. Have a solution to make this all go away. Big dollar involved. To second, to Nina 15 minutes later. Leo knows everything. He's lost it. Talking about doing something stupid at the old ice factory. 9 p.m. We have to stop him before he ruins himself and everything else. Then, Leo waited in the shadows. Julian arrived first, his Porsche navigating the potholed lot with difficulty. He stepped out looking nervous and out of place in his designer casual wear. "Hello?" His voice echoed in the vast space. "I got your message about the insurance."
Leo stepped out from behind a giant compressor, his work boots crunching on grit. "Hello, Julian." Julian spun around, his face a comic mask of confusion and dawning fear. "Leo? What the hell is this? Where's the insurance guy?" "There is no insurance guy," Leo said, his voice calm and flat, carrying easily in the dead air. "This is about truth, something you and my wife seem to have a problem with." "If this is about Nina, it's about everything," Leo interrupted, his voice hardening. "It's about lies. It's about betrayal. It's about the consequences of building your happiness on the ruins of someone else's life." He clicked a remote. The projectors flared to life, blindingly bright. The walls were instantly covered in a mosaic of their betrayal. The Polaroid blown up to monstrous size, text messages scrolling like ticker tapes of venom, financial spreadsheets, the damning pages from the future plans folder. Julian's face went as white as the projected screen. "Leo, let me explain." "Explain what?" Leo's voice boomed, amplified by the speakers. "How you pretended to be my partner while you were fucking my wife? How you convinced her to siphon money from our accounts to prop up your failing distribution business? How you planned to have me pay child support for your sons while you played house in your mansion? You didn't even know, did you, that they're yours?" The shock on Julian's face was genuine. He was a pawn in Nina's game too, and the realization was a physical blow. "They're mine?" Before Leo could answer, headlights swept through the broken windows. Nina's Audi screeched to a halt outside. She burst through a side door, her heels clicking frantically on the concrete. "Leo, what are you doing?" she demanded, her voice shrill. Then she saw the walls. She saw her own words and images towering over her, 100 feet tall. Her confidence shattered. "Oh my God. This is the reckoning, Nina," Leo said, turning to face her. "The final audit." Nina's eyes darted between Leo and a terrified Julian. Her survival instincts kicked in, shifting from fear to attack. "Okay, fine, you found out. So what? Our marriage was a corpse for years. I did what I had to do to survive, to have a real life. You had to lie about paternity?" Leo's voice rose, echoing off the steel rafters. "You had to steal? You had to plan my financial and emotional destruction while you slept next to me every night? I never loved you. You're a small, you fix things for a living. Julian offers a life, not this grinding mediocrity." Julian, stung by her confession and panicked, found a thread of courage. "Leo, I'm sorry it happened this way, but she's right. She deserves more than you could ever give her." "More?" Leo picked up a heavy 24-inch pipe wrench from a nearby workbench. The steel felt like an extension of his arm. "You mean like a man who's about to be indicted for tax fraud? Like a man whose business is a contaminated loss? Like a man who's been cuckolded by his own wife while she plotted to make him a slave to her lifestyle?" The crude word hung in the air. Julian, his face flushed crimson with rage and humiliation. "You son of a bitch! You did this! You sabotaged me!" He lunged, swinging a wild, clumsy punch. Leo, who had spent his life wrestling 100-pound compressors into place, moved with the economy of a tradesman. He ducked under the swing, dropped the wrench, and drove his fist into Julian's solar plexus. The air left Julian's lungs in a pained whoosh. Leo grabbed him by his expensive collar, spun him around, and slammed him face first against the cold metal of an ammonia compressor. The impact was sickeningly loud. "You want to fight me?" he hissed into his ear, his voice a low, venomous growl. "You want to take my wife, my children, my money, my business, and now you want to fight me too?" He released Julian, who slumped to his knees, gasping. As Julian looked up, Leo hit him, not with his fist, but with an open-handed, brutal slap that snapped Julian's head to the side and split his lip. "Please," Julian whimpered, blood trickling down his chin, all fight gone, replaced by abject terror. "Please don't kill me." "Kill you?" He looked genuinely perplexed. "Julian, I don't want to kill you. I want you to live a very, very long life. I want you to spend every single day of that life remembering what it feels like to lose everything you ever cared about." He turned to Nina, who was pressed against the wall, her eyes wide with a fear she had never known. "Please," she begged, her voice shaking. "Think of the boys! Think of our family!" "Our family?" Leo activated another screen. "The divorce papers and custody agreement filled the wall. According to your own plans, we don't have a family. According to this, you were taking my sons and my money and disappearing into his world. They're not my sons. They never were. You were just the useful idiot who paid for everything while I built a real life." The words, her own weaponized contempt, echoed through the factory, thrown back at her by the cruel acoustics of the place. Leo nodded slowly, as if he had finally confirmed a fundamental law of physics. There it is, the truth. Finally. He walked over to a cowering Julian and took his phone from his jacket pocket. He found Nina's contact info. "You know what's interesting about the modern world, Julian? Everything is recorded. Every text, every call, every betrayal." He played a recording. Nina's voice, crisp and cold, filled the hall. "Leo's such a pathetic loser. When this is over, I'll have his house, his money, and his kids, and he'll be living in some studio apartment paying me alimony for the rest of his miserable life." Julian looked up at Nina, betrayal now etched on his bloody face. "You said you loved me."
"I love what you can give me," Nina spat back, the last of her pretense gone, her survival now depending on aligning with power, and Leo was clearly the power in the room. Just like I used Leo for what he could give me. It's called being smart. Leo pulled out the final binder. "Speaking of being smart, let me show you how smart I've been." He opened it. It contained the work of a brilliant, ruthless divorce attorney Leo had retained using the money Nina had stolen. It laid out a devastating legal counterattack, a lawsuit for paternity fraud, seeking restitution for 13 years of child support paid under false pretenses, financial affidavits proving her theft from their marital assets, evidence of Julian's tax evasion provided by the data tap, and a powerful argument for full custody based on her gross parental alienation and moral unfitness. "The thing about revenge," Leo explained, his voice like a teacher delivering a lecture, "is that it's not about violence. It's about consequences. Natural, legal, financial, and social consequences." He handed copies of the summary documents to each of them. "Nina, you're going to be defending yourself against charges of fraud, theft, and conspiracy. You will lose your real estate license. You will be paying me. Julian, you're looking at tax evasion, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. Your business is already gone. Your reputation is next." Nina's hands shook as she held the papers. "You can't do this! I'm their mother!" "Those boys deserve better than a lying viper for a mother," Leo said, his voice chillingly calm. "And legally speaking, since you committed paternity fraud, you'll be writing me a check every month, not the other way around." Julian struggled to his feet. "Leo, wait! We can make a deal! I have money! I can—" "What I want," Leo said, cutting him off, "is for both of you to understand, in your bones, what it feels like to lose absolutely everything you thought was yours." He pressed a button on his remote. The screens changed. A live icon flashed in the corner. A chat window populated in real time.
He was live streaming everything, every confession, every tear, every moment of their utter ruin to a private channel he'd invited all of their business contacts, colleagues, friends, and family to view. Nina watched in horror as her phone began to vibrate incessantly, sliding out of her pocket onto the floor. She could see the live comments scrolling on the wall, messages from her colleagues, her clients, her sister Chloe, her parents. Her carefully constructed world was dissolving in real time, broadcast in high definition. "You're destroying us," she screamed. "You destroyed yourselves," Leo replied, gathering his things. "I'm just the mechanic. I'm just fixing the problem." He walked toward the exit, leaving them in the center of the crumbling factory, illuminated by the glaring light of their own humiliation. "Oh, and Julian," he paused at the door. "Your insurance adjuster called me today for a professional opinion. They're denying your claim. Turns out your policy has a specific clause voiding coverage for losses resulting from criminal activity. You'll be declaring bankruptcy by the new year." "Leo, wait!" Nina cried, taking a step forward. "Don't." His voice cracked like a whip, stopping her cold. "Don't say my name. Don't call me. Don't come to the house. Your lawyer will communicate with my lawyer. That is the only contact we will ever have again." "What about my boys?" she pleaded, a final, desperate gambit. Leo paused, and for a single, fleeting moment, the icy facade cracked, revealing the bottomless pain beneath. "The boys will be fine. They will have a father who loves them, not a sperm donor who sees them as accessories. And they will have a mother who... Actually, they're going to need a lot of therapy to deal with having you as their mother." He left them there. The live stream continued for another 10 minutes, a public execution of their lives. 6 months later, Leo sat in a mahogany-paneled family court listening to the judge's final ruling. Nina had been found culpable of paternity fraud and ordered to pay Leo restitution, a monthly sum that reversed the flow of child support. She had lost her real estate license after the live stream evidence was admitted. Her reputation was in tatters. Julian's bankruptcy was finalized. The IRS case was proceeding, and he faced almost certain prison time. The man from the mansion was sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 other guys. But the victory felt most real on a crisp Saturday morning the following spring. Leo was in the stands, his coffee steaming in the cool air, cheering as Ethan connected with a fastball, sending it soaring into the outfield for a double. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw her, Nina. She stood by the chain-link fence, looking thin, faded, and a decade older. She had lost the glow of expensive upkeep. She waited until the inning ended and approached him tentatively. "Leo," she said, her voice meek. "Please, can we talk?" He didn't look away from the field. "We have nothing to talk about." "The boys, they miss me. They ask about me." "The boys are in therapy twice a week. They're learning to process the fact that their mother lied to them for their entire lives. They're resilient. They're doing fine." "I made mistakes," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears that no longer had any power over him. "You made choices," he corrected her. "Actions have consequences. You taught me that." The tears spilled over. "I'm working at a dry cleaner's, Leo. I live in a studio apartment. I lost everything." "Good." The single, flat word hit her with the force of a physical blow. She stood there for a long moment, truly understanding for the first time that the man she had manipulated and betrayed was gone, replaced by someone impenetrable, someone who could not be moved by tears or manipulation.